Yo, welcome back to the channel. It's Zatumi here, and today we're going over a Pokemon Pocket tier list brought to you by Untapped.gg. This is a great resource website to find really cool decks for all things Pokemon Pocket. They do this with other games like Marvel Snap, Magic the Gathering. They know what they're doing, and they built this tier list with, get this, exploring Pokemon TCG Pocket through the archetypes based on tournament metadata from limitlesstcg. Now, you guys have asked numerous times in the comments, like, where do you compete in these tournaments? Limitlesstcg is the website. It's literally right there. I'll probably put it in the pinned comments too for those of you that want to check out those tournaments and potentially even join some tournaments. But these are the tier lists that we're looking at today. And honestly, it's kind of surprising, which is why I wanted to make this overall video to discuss it. So right off the bat, we have only 3 archetypes in A tier, and that's Pikachu EX, Starmie EX, and Mewtwo EX. Now, Pikachu has the best win rate, being at 55%, with Starmie in second place being 54%, and Mewtwo EX being at 52%. However, popularity is a very important factor, right? So like, how many matches, how many players are actually playing these types of decks? Well, when you look at both Pikachu and Mewtwo, they're pretty close in popularity. So comparing those two, Pikachu is definitely getting more wins than Mewtwo decks. However, the Starmie EX, that's like a less than 6% popularity. So like, based on a pool of said number, what is that? That's literally a fifth. It's about 20% the player base that chooses Pikachu and Mewtwo choose Starmie EX, but they're also getting a 54% win rate. So don't let those win rates confuse you. It's also based on popularity, I'd say. With that, let's check out some of these decks and see what they're running. Hopefully my camera's not covering anything. It looks like we're pretty good. These are going to be just based off of players that register these decks on this website. These aren't going to be all the decks, but these are just some Pikachu EX decks. You're going to see a lot of Zapdos. That makes sense. Zapdos is a huge staple. Electrode's really cool because it has a 0 retreat cost and it does great things. Personally, I think Zebstrika right here is personally one of my favorites because that Thunder Spear can deal 30 damage to literally any Pokemon in the game. Active spot or in their bench. It's great. I mean, they can't hit their hand, but still, that's pretty cool. Could you imagine if a card does that? And then we also have the Lieutenant Surge variant where you can move all electric energy from your bench Pokemon to your Raichu, Electrode, or Electabuzz. And then with Raichu, you'll see it deals 140 with 3 electric energy. And that's just like, that's insanely strong. This does so much damage. This is one-shotting opposing Pikachus, one-shotting opposing Zapdoses, not this Zapdos, this is Zapdos. So yeah, overall, Pikachu EX meta, pretty strong staple. It's pretty consistent too. And yeah, you're just going to get a bunch of different types. Moving on, let's check out the Starmie EXs. And I'd imagine, yeah, it's going to be super aggro. I like this. This is the type of deck that I would run, except without the Bruxish. A lot of people do play Bruxish, but typically with Greninja. I like this because it's super consistent. You'll notice this one right here has 0 Misties. And this is the reason why I feel like this is such a meta strong deck, is because you don't have to depend on coin flips. The reason you see Pikachu EX, Starmie, and what's the other one? Mewtwo, is because they're not heavily reliant on coin flips. We can ignore Zapdos for a second, but they're not heavily reliant on coin flips. Whereas you can, for 2 energy, ramp up Staryu to Starmie, have a 0 retreat cost, and deal 90 damage, potentially 100 damage with Giovanni here. Or you can go the Golduck route for on curve, leveling up, evolving, and dealing 70 damage. Or your Pyukumuku deals 30 damage for only 1 energy. This is just really good overall. And it looks like a lot of people are liking the Bruxish. Personally, I'm not a fan. You could also throw something like Farfetch to be super aggressive. I just personally love the consistency here. You're starting to see some Misties. Again, some people are going to run their Misties. A lot of times you'll see maybe even a staple of Articuno if they are running Misty, because if you can ramp up or high roll Articuno turn 1, turn 2, you just kind of steamroll, you win, especially hitting that Blizzard and dealing 10 damage onto the bench. It's pretty strong. Lastly, let's check out the Mewtwo EX that is in A tier, and this is a spicy build, but the main build that's going to be amazing is the one that runs the Gardevoir with the Psy Shadow. Personally, I think this is the best ramp card in the entire game. Misty, coin flips. Moltres, coin flips. Lilligant requires 2 energies and in the active spot. What's it called? Magneton with its ability, you could only really give another Pokemon the energy via Lieutenant Surge, and it's limited to 3 Pokemon. This thing right here ramps every single psychic Pokemon in your active spot. Itself, Mewtwo, literally any psychic Pokemon. In my opinion, Gardevoir is hands down the best ramp card in the game. The only downside is that it is a stage 2 Pokemon. Like if you don't find your Ralts or your Kirlia or itself, you're kind of just, you're just there, really. Yeah, Mewtwo EX is so great because genuinely you could run so many different builds and decks with it. In fact, look at this right here. Greninja Mewtwo, a player was it Fat Dunk was his name, if I'm trying to remember correctly. Their name was Fat Dunk. They competed in 2 tournaments. One of them they placed like top 5 before going into the top 32, if I recall correctly. And they were running a deck very similar to this, where it's a Mewtwo, a Greninja, and a Kangaskhan. Like building decks in this game, even though it's a 20 card deck game, can get extremely creative and spicy, especially if you choose to go out the box. So kudos to you guys for doing that. But yeah, definitely Mewtwo EX. I am not surprised that it is in A tier. All right, now we're going into B tier, and I don't think we're gonna go into too many of these view decks. We're just gonna kind of dissect them. I really wanted to go over the A tiers just to see what the variety was there. But Articuno EX, that's gonna have a lot of like Starmies and maybe even solo Articunos, 18 trainers. 51% win rate with only a 2.6 popularity in tournaments. This isn't just like casual ladders in tournaments. The most consistent in B tier is going to be your Charizard EX. And I'd have to say that's because of the most recent data. And I can show you guys this one. It's going to have to be yep, there it is. The Arcanine, the Charizard, the Moltres, and typically it's the single Growlithe. And this thing is just right here. It is super consistent. Sometimes people also only run 1 Charmeleon. Actually, no, this deck right here seems very, very consistent to the tournament winning decks. You have 1 Growlithe. The goal is turn 1, play your Moltres, ramp these other 2 big, giant, fiery Pokemon, and then just start shredding your opponents. It is insane that it took the community of players, comp players, including myself. If you guys remember one of my first tier list videos, Arcanine was D tier for me, and oh my God, was I wrong. I'll admit it, I was horribly wrong. But it took us how long to figure out Charizard Moltres is not it. Arcanine Moltres is not it. But if you put Charizard Moltres and Arcanine, oh my God, that's where the magic happens. Then we have Greninja, and this is just interchangeable in so many kinds of decks. I'll just quickly talk about this. Greninja, Wigglytuff, Executor, that's super spicy. I like that. Weezing is pretty good just because of its ability. Let's talk about it real quick. Water Shuriken. From the bench, you can just start dealing 20 damage, chip damage. You get your opponent to waste potions. This card right here, oh man, dude, honestly, super happy you got a promo alt art for the Venusaur event, but I can see Greninja be consistent in set 2, set 3, set 4. Like this is going to be a staple for a lot of water decks and a lot of all kinds of decks, to be honest, especially if we get into a meta where dual energy is actually a thing. And then we have Arcanine EX, 50%, I'm guessing because it's not running the full package here. I guess you can kind of throw these 2 together now, but that's gonna be B tier. Then we go into C tier and we got a bunch here. Ninetales, Super Aggro Blade Ninetales, one of the best cards, one of the best decks in my opinion, especially if you're trying to go for like a win streak. I can already see, I'll just say it right now, Starmie consistent aggro, Pikachu consistent aggro, Ninetales Blaine consistent aggro. If you want your 5-game win streak, those are going to be the decks that you want to run. Check the channel. I get win streaks like it's nobody's business. Not humble brag, but seriously, I do it on live. So I'll also make a video sharing these types of decks. So be on the lookout for that. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're not subscribed and you're interested in those types of decks. Blastoise EX has kind of struggled a lot. However, I think, yeah, it's just not great, requiring, like, if you fail your Misties, it sucks, but if you hit your Misties, oh my God, you're shredding everything. So Blastoise right now feels like it's a very 50-50. Water needs a better ramp card, in my opinion. That's more consistent. I don't think it'll ever get it, though. Marowak is pretty good. A lot of coin flips. Wigglytuff is pretty good. A lot of coin flips. Unironically, Machamp is no coin flips, has this pretty solid HP, but just like only feels great if you're going second and attacking and evolving on curve. That way you give your Machoke, your Machop, your Machoke, your Machamp energies and deal, 20, 50, and 120 respectively damage. Arbok is pretty good because that feels good into like Weezing decks, into Pidgeot decks where you can lock them in, switch them out. It's honestly pretty solid. And Executor EX, Guarantees 40 damage with a max ceiling of 80 damage. Feels honestly kind of great. I'm a huge fan of Executor EX. Even when I hit tails, I'm minimally guaranteed to deal 40 damage, potentially 50 with Giovanni. And that feels pretty good, especially with the 160 HP. You'll survive Mewtwo EX as long as they don't have a Giovanni. So that feels pretty good. And then D tier is Dragonite. Makes sense. It's dual energy and it kind of sucks, to be honest. Like Dragonite would be so good. Like, Dragonite is so good. Let me get this right, guys. When it works. But if you play 10 games with Dragonite, how many games are you actually winning? And how many of those games do you need to hit the right energy in order to win? That's what I think this is based off of also. And also these are in tournaments. So like compared to these other meta decks, these are not holding up. And it's surprising to see Venusaur EX here because I'm pretty sure Venusaur EX was one of the first meta decks to beat Pikachu, Charizard, Mewtwo, and now it's in D tier. It's not a lot of people are playing it. It was running Venusaur EX and Executor EX. And then Alakazam here, I'm assuming because it takes forever to ramp, and like as long people who are playing in tournaments probably know what the meta is. So when you see an Alakazam or Abra, your opponent or the player is gonna strategically place their energy so that way you're not getting maximum value with Alakazam. Alakazam is great if your opponent doesn't know what Alakazam does, or like you're able to play it in a way that you can actually get value out of it, which makes sense why it's in D tier. There you guys have it. I'm so glad that we have something like this. I was always wondering with all the tournaments and information, like what are actually the best decks? And here you go. Thanks to Untapped, they pulled the data from the tournaments, the meta tournaments from limitlesstcg, and these are the winning decks, how often they're played, and what they're looking like. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. Don't forget to hit the like button and consider subscribing for more quality Pokemon Pocket content. That's going to be it. We're going to wrap it up, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.